Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you will be viewing this stream. This is Sam Topert, Sound of Joy Music Services, and we're back with our Series 5, I believe, or fifth podcast for our beginner church musicians. No workbook today. This course, or rather this session, is not covered in the workbook, but it's one that's really important for you to know because it's going to show you some of the tips and the techniques of learning two scales at the same time. So minor scale, we did harmonic minor scale yesterday, which was in the workbook. You saw how that scale is constructed. The actual minor scale is a combination of a major scale from its third note, which makes it the minor. Going to middle C, major scale is right here, which we covered. The minute you add the minor scale, that third note, which is now the E flat minor, the E flat major scale are the same notes used in the C minor scale. Because you've learned the E flat major scale. Go down to the C, play the exact same notes, you have the C minor scale. Something that church musicians in my earlier day did not share with me. Let me bring up the Chordy app. I'm trying to make this as not so much technology in it, but I need to perhaps have the Chordy app showing. Let's see if we get that to pop into place. We're doing this live, as they say. There's the Chordy app. So let's get this in here just from a reference standpoint. There we go. So you'll see the major scale, which you did practice. But when you go to C minor scale, there's that minor note that denotes the minor chord or the set of notes. Now we're doing the E flat major scale, depending upon where you want to start the note. So they're the same scale notes, just the root key is determining what becomes the actual, we'll call it the farther key, which is where it starts. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to the 1. But in E flat, if this became the 1, same notes, but in a major format. That's why you can hear some songs that are in the major and then they just change one note. And now you just change the whole family of that chord. Just from a scale. So that was C. Do the left hand, of course. So if you look at the third note of the third flatted note from the major scale, if we go to D, that's the third note, flat that for the minor, that now becomes an F major scale if you continue it out this way. But you go down to the D. So now these notes become D minor. So if you can do the F major scale, you can do the D minor scale. The same thing happens in E. That's the major, right? Flat it down. Now it becomes the G major scale. Which is why when you're playing in G and you want to use those Richard Smallwood chords, he's really playing in G. me see. Angels watching over me, angels watching over me. There it is. That's really the G major scale. Continuing to F, F is the more fun key because F major, drop the 1, it becomes an A flat major scale. So starting in F, that now becomes the F minor scale, which is really the A flat major scale, with all the church musicians love to play in A flat. There it is. So now you go over to G major, flat the 3rd note, now it becomes a B flat major scale. So the notes of the B flat major scale become the notes for the G minor scale. G major, G minor. Makes it easier to remember once you look at flatting the 3rd note of the major scale. Now becomes, if you look at what flatten the 3rd note in the major scale, flatted note, half a step down, and you select that as your root key, that scale in B flat becomes the scale for G minor. And of course, if you like to play in B flat, right there, the notes are right there. The B flat major scale is the same as the G minor scale. So we going over to A major. A major is the easiest one. That's the major scale. Flat that note, it's C major. So that's where your minor scale for A, is really the C major scale notes. So you're stopping on making the A as your root. This is how the practice of 2 scales happens at the same time. What you could do in A major, so if you can do this in C, you can do it in A minor. Practicing the scales gets your fingers moving across all of these notes. B major becomes, there's your major for B. So your 3rd note, E flat, becomes D major, will give you the notes for B minor. That's where you're going to stop. That's how you get those chords. Now, D is one of those keys a lot of musicians shun from, and you really shouldn't, because D major is a beautiful key to play in. B major also becomes a beautiful key to play in when you understand where you're getting the notes from and what notes are associated with it. So this is the B minor scale. Getting the B and the D mixed up. Let's see. D minor will give you these chords. F sharp, D. There it is. We're in D minor, but look at this chord. Right there in D. Why? Because they share D minor and B minor, get these mixed up, and D major share the same notes. So of course you can borrow the chords. They share the same notes, so they can share the same chords. This makes playing those minor chords you hear all the other musicians play so much easier, because you are comparing the notes in one scale for a major with the notes in another scale for the minor. There we go. All right, and now we're back to C, where we started. So what you might say, well, you left out the black keys. The same concept, but here it becomes a little tricky. D flat, C sharp, depending upon when you drop half a step. Well, there's the major. So you go up 1, 2, 3, flat to third. Now it becomes E major. So now D sharp, D flat minor is an E major scale. Now there is where you're going to get your preacher chords. Put that in there. The chord I want there. I forgot the chord I usually put there. There it is. And you're looking at this chord, it's got some of the same notes of, that's a change, giving that sound. Right in that scale. We'll leave off that. There we go. And notice where you find your chords within the scale. This chord, minor chord, is in the E flat major scale. So when you want to do those runs, think of E major. And by practicing the scales, again, practicing the E major scale, you can now change one note and wind up, what's the word I want to use? Wailing in C sharp, D flat minor. to the jazz minor scale. All right, E flat, the major. So 1, 2, 3 flat, that becomes the G flat or F sharp major scale. If you were doing G flat, those are the same notes you will hear in E flat minor, which means songs like I don't know if they still can't stop praising your name anymore. You'll find that song is in E flat minor. There it is. And in F sharp major, G flat. So they are borrowing the same chord structures that you could find in both keys. So sometimes you question, well, what key is the song in? The lowest note determines the family of chords. If the lowest note is here, that's the key it's in. But in the song, it can bounce in between. Good place to practice playing across all of the keys of the black notes. When you get your fingers used to flying across the keys and learn how to maneuver them, all of a sudden, every note that you've been hearing in a different key becomes available to you. All right, so G flat, F sharp. There's the major. Go to the minor. It becomes A major. That's how you get comfortable with it. You go where the minor is, that's going to now be a major. You play the major of A, now you've got the minor scale. Now, G flat minor, because a lot of musicians don't like to play in A major, and they really should get a handle on it, because A major, again, is one of those keys that gives your fingers a different perspective as to how it wants to form chords. A major. There it is. To the C sharp 7. Or here. Again, there's your. You get that chord in there. It's built on the minor of G flat, F sharp. You should notice change. Minor, there it is. I used to practice progressions in these scales just so that I can hear what those chords could potentially sound like. Good morning. Enjoying your content and the things you share with us. When did the Hammond be executed? Did you use MIDI your bass to your keyboard to get to work on your? Yes, I did. I have I used the Roland PK4. It's an old version. It's probably 15 years old now. When I bought it, it was brand new. They are MIDI directly into the computer, and I have them all separated so that the software doesn't see it coming through the keyboard, but it has its own MIDI connection, which allows me to not have so much MIDI information going into the computer at the same time, which might confuse the software. So it's on channel 2 or channel 3. It's on channel 2 because I'm actually doubling the bass from the lower manuals. But yeah, that's I've been using the MIDI organ since. That's Native Instruments I'm using now. There was one I was using. Hammond B4 was the first version I was using that on. Beautiful sound it has. Picking up my minor chord in A. There it is. I'm mixing up the scales now. That's the harmonic minor scale. That's what those. Whenever I start doing my actual chord scale chording, I pivot between the minor and the harmonic minor scale just to get that tone I want to hear, so I can wind up here. That is the minor scale. That's G flat, F sharp, A flat major. First 3 notes, sharp the third, or flat the third note, becomes B major. And that is where the family or the root is. Now, what happens here is that if you like that actual Brooklyn sound, the Brooklyn musicians use A flat to play in, but they're really playing in B major. But A minor is giving them that. G. There it is. That's all they're doing. They're in B major, but because B major scale has the same scale of A flat minor in there, they can bounce around. And it took me a while to figure that out when I said, wait a minute, but they're playing in B major. But then they're coming out of it. Oh, they're right there. This chord is in the A flat minor, but it's also a B major 6. There's a 6th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you go to the A minor, it's a 1 minor. And lastly, which I find to be one of the easiest ones to play. B flat major, flat that note, it becomes D flat major. So this is F, this is the B flat minor scale, which is the same thing as the D flat major scale. So if you think about all the black notes being played in one particular scale, that's done in D flat. All the black notes are played. But in B flat minor, it is the same notes except for where it starts that are found in D flat major. So when you learn the Timothy Wright that scale is in D flat. Left hand is always a little slow there. So again, it's in B flat, but you borrow those chords. So you're really in both keys. You are in B flat minor and D flat major. So you can borrow the chords. That's the chord, or the 4 chord in D major. That's the 5th chord in D major. But go to that F B flat minor, it's the 6th chord. So it's almost as though you are playing in D6 or B minor. What's the same note? B minor. So it makes it easier to practice in once you know once you accept the fact that you're playing in a major scale, it's just where you end or start the first note. If you start it here, if you start this here, the same notes are accessible in B flat minor. Okay, so that is kind of giving us the aspect of the minor scale which are used in gospel music songs. Now, jazz is its own world. That's where all of the other scale tones come in. And I do have a series that I did on the scales. It's on the channel. This is for the beginner musicians. I want to be able to demystify the need to use the transpose button by just practicing 3 scales: the major, the harmonic minor, the minor, because you will hear the differences in those scales. And then when you go to learn any song that is of the gospel nature, or really any song that's being played, your ears will tell you what scale they're in, thus finding the chords a lot easier, because you'll hear every chord is built on a scale: major, minor, diminished, depending upon which scale that chord is built on. Now, when I do my chords are multifaceted. They'll go all over the place for me based upon where the melody is going. If I'm doing a basic melody, let's go to the key of C. Let's go try a real basic. I can't use total praise. Well, I can use total praise because it goes right down the scale. You are the source of my strength. You are the strength of my life. I lift my hands in total praise to you. So that's right down the scale. The thing about Richard Smallwood, he's a classical musician, which means you're going to hear scales in all of his music. You are. That's the chord that's being built. You are the source, right down of my strength. There's a 7, but there's the tritone that is built around the jazz sphere. You are the, now I can change the chord here, source of my strength. There's my minor scale. Resolve it. Now I'm back in the major scale. I lift my hand in, built upon a scale. Which scale is this chord built on? We know that it's a diminished chord. So we got to look at what notes do we see featured. But this note is in the way. So this scale, it could be in the A family because the root note is in the A family. Is this a B flat scale? Or which scale is that chord built on? I lift my hands in. Anytime we change the root note, we are changing the name of the family of scales for that chord. Now we're in the C chord family. We can find the chord. Now we're in the D family. Now we're back in the C family and the G, flat 7, or in the C family of chord. Again, look at how many notes can you play of a scale, and then take out the ones that are not being heard. That gives you the chord and the family of which that chord is pulled from. No song will be hidden from the musician that starts off their discipline from a beginner standpoint with the basics of scales, and then start to build their chords from that scale. So this brings us to the end of this live stream for our beginner series. We have so much that we haven't covered yet, but we want you to get into practicing, just hearing how notes sound. Just so you can hear the difference. Just to hear what the notes sound like. Of course, get your fingers limbered up. Generally, in the workbook, it says you should be practicing scales no more than 5 to 10 minutes. Once you get to a comfort level to where you can play them without hesitation. Without hesitation, it's like this. And you can just get right to them with one hand. Yeah, stuff the right note. There it is. It should be fluid as possible. I'm rushing this as I'm trying to bring this to a close. And you're done on your right hand. Then you go to your left hand. so I get this right. I haven't done this in so long. Slow it down, Sam. Slow it down so that you can get through each note. Again, train your hands to get to the notes. The fingering chart, of course, is in the book. Start off with the correct fingering. As you get comfortable, as I have become, you will find whatever fingering takes you to where you want to be. Because the left hand is technically your assistant bass player and support chords. So the better trained it is, when you don't have a bass player, you have a hand that can give you some assistance with the lowest note, which is the bass note, and with extended chords. If you want to do a nice wide chord, and pop. That's why we practice scales with the left hand and the right hand together. All right, so this is bringing us to the close. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow we should have, let's see, yes, I should have a schedule tomorrow. I got something to do in the morning, but then I'll be back to continue with, what scale do I want to cover? We're going to cover, for our beginner musicians, finding a chord within the scales. I see my keyboard is shifting on me. There we go. A little bit of OCD on my side. So, Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services. Thanks for watching. As always, give us that thumbs up if you like what we're doing, especially for our beginner musicians. I do insist that you visit the Patreon page where you can download the workbook for free. Just joining as a free member, you get to look at all the other files. We're close to over 100 other files built over the course of 2 years, and more being added. Of course, our AI audio MIDI files, more charts on chord building that you could actually create your own reference library on your computer. A lot of things that we have there for your support to this work that I'm doing, or see what I have there under the actual free things as you decide whether or not you want to get access to all the other files there that we share that we don't share on YouTube. Some things we can't share because of YouTube copyright. On Patreon, I can do whatever I want, and I do that. So thanks for watching. As again, always leave a comment, like and a share. Thanks for being here. Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services.